Hey everybody, we are off and running on this latest edition of the Stronach 5 preview show here from our XBTV studios at Gulfstream Park. So good to have you along for the ride because it is a new week after all, and there's a lot to cover with this coming Friday, October 12th, the Stronach 5 sequence. But before we go forward and talk about the bet, we got to take a step back and value. We had 74 winning tickets out of a pool just under $100,000. Each of those 74 winning tickets returned a little over $1,100. I'll admit it, I was never that great in math, but I do know that dollar price for the Stronach 5 paid more than 5 times the $1 win parlay, which is pretty awesome and pretty unbelievable. Now, we've got a lot of ground to cover here on week number 3 of the Stronach 5. In fact, we'll be making stops all across the country on Friday, October 12th, because it all begins at Gulfstream Park West with a scheduled post time of 5:03 p.m. Eastern, and it's as easy as ever to make your wager. Step up to the window, ask for Gulfstream Park West, race 7, $1, Stronach 5, and off you go. So GPW in the mix, in fact, a doubleheader from Gulfstream West. And that goes as well for the great race place out there at Santa Anita with races 3 and 4 on the Friday card. And let's not forget a good-looking 2-year-old filly maiden special weight cast up there at Laurel Park. And don't worry, we'll be catching up with one of our pros on the ground in Maryland City, Maryland. Now, as far as what's on tap with the Stronach 5, in addition to making it a great bet, we want to make it a bet that's easy to prepare for and study for. And with that, we've got some free past performances, the entire sequence available free of charge over at GulfstreamPark.com. Definitely take advantage of that. And this is a day and age when I think players are very conscious about takeout and value. You just can't, for a multi-race wager like this, 5 races in about 60 minutes. You can't beat the takeout at just 12%. And if you needed another little positive to jump on into the Stronach 5 pool, well, how do you like that $50,000 guaranteed Stronach 5 pool this coming Friday, October the 12th? And again, making stops. It goes with the territory, but we are all over the country this week on the preview show. In fact, our panel of experts up north, out west, and even a little west from where I'm standing. We've got Michelle out there at Santa Anita Park in California, Stan the Man up there at Laurel Park, and of course the one and only Ron Nicoletti, who's some, 8 miles, give or take, west from where I stand at Gulfstream Park. And in fact, Ron, pressure's on you as we welcome you to the broadcast because GPW's got a big turf race with a dozen ready to roll in this opening leg over there in Miami Gardens. And maybe the best news of all, the forecast looks clear for Friday afternoon. What do you got for us, Ron, in that opening leg?
Well, it's our race number 7, and it's really nice. It's a full field of 12 on the turf. 1 was entered for the main track only, so a great way to start it with a full field. And I went with 3 selections, and here we're going to show you the field real quickly here. And there you see it coming up. And like I said, a full field on the turf. There's nothing better than that. But I zeroed in on 3 selections in here. 1 was the 3 Secret of Life, who's actually my best bet in that race. The 11 Box of Gold. And I also used a horse trying the turf for the first time, the number 10, and that is Felt. But I do like Secret of Life on top of my ticket. It's the number 3 horse. I just thought this one dropping to the $20,000 level this afternoon, stalked the pace along the inside last time, and then makes this outside move and starts to close. I just like the way this horse closed with number 7 that afternoon and just kept coming and coming, and I thought it was a good performance. Now, you're watching the stretch. This horse gets run down by a horse called Zao's Dream, and that on the opening day turf course, I went back and looked at all the turf races on that day, and it looked like the horses that ran from off the pace were actually doing their best. So I thought the number 3 had a nice trip, got that nice inside post on Friday afternoon, so I just think that's the one to beat. Now, the other horse I had some interest in is the number 11, and that is Box of Gold, who's dropping to the 20 level also, stretching out around 2 turns, broke from a demanding post last time out across town at Gulfstream Park, and ran okay, 4th in a $35,000 debut. And that race produced a couple of next out winners, so I thought maybe that was a horse to use. Now, The horse I was mentioning that's going to try the turf for the first time is the 10 Felt. And this one is a daughter of First Samurai out of an Indian Charlie mare, just bred really nicely. One of two in the race for Antonio Sano, the other one being Ocean Delight.
Well, good stuff there from Ronnie. Antonio Sano, who not only has Gonavera prepping for the Breeders' Cup Classic, also has a pretty large base over there at GPW, so there's no shipping involved. And Secret of Life does have a better post than some of those other key contenders in the opening leg of Friday Stronach 5, the 7th at Gulfstream West. How about leg number 2? Well, let's hop on a plane. We'll travel some 2,700 miles out to Arcadia, California. Good old Santa Anita Park. We've got our correspondent Michelle Yu joining us, and there are some big fields as well at Santa Anita come this Friday afternoon, Michelle. I think you've got a potential price as well brewing in this first leg out there in the Stronach 5.
Well, Jason, I'll settle for just a winner, but if it's a price, that's even better. We're going to have a maiden 50 down the hillside turf course here, so that's 6.5 furlongs on the grass. And I think there's a Captain Obvious horse in this 10-horse field, and that is the 9, Cap Paul for Peter Miller. But I went back and watched his race a couple back, the only time he ran for 50 down the hill, and he had no excuse to finish second, and he's had 2 subsequent poor efforts. So I'm going to try and get you a little price horse as my top pick, and that's the 2, A Ton of Run for Mike Pipey. I don't want to show you a race because he hasn't raced since January, but we do have a recent work for him, at least relatively recent. It was back a month ago on September 12th, and you can see him here on the rail. A Ton of Run is aptly named. You can see very, very rank, hard to hold here. Once the rider does get him settled, he's almost skiing, just trying to hold him back with his company. So when I see this work at 50 and change here, which is, relatively slow, I can tell this horse has a ton more ability than he's showing in the morning. So for me, when I see his next 3 works all being 102 and change, I'm okay with that because I do feel like they're probably holding him back and not letting him run to his full potential in the mornings. Plus, this horse was an AE for maiden special weight this Sunday, did not draw in. So I think the drop here to the $50,000 tag is very, very interesting. And even though he's coming off a break, Pipey is 21% off the bench. So I think maybe an interesting horse here to throw in for your leg number 2 as the horses will head down the hillside. That being said, of course, I still think Capal is going to be the Captain Obvious horse, and you can't leave him off your ticket by any means.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle, and top connections there with the likely favorite towards the outside with Drayden Van Dyke and Peter Miller teaming up there. But Michelle tried to get that 12-1 Calbred home on the morning line by Good Journey, A Ton of Run. Back home to Florida, at least from where I do the show. And we'll head back over to Gulfstream Park West as well. We've got a doubleheader from good old GPW in Miami Gardens. And again, we'll bring Ron Nicoletti in the mix. And we're up in class, Ronnie, off that first race we looked at GPW. I'll tell you, Friday's 8th race is a nice little field of some hard-hitting turf claimers, and a big field at that. 2 in the race for Danny Gargan and David Fox.
Yeah, they'll be going a mile on the turf course in non-winners of 3 in life with 3-year-olds. They run for that tag of $30,000 down to $25,000. And once again, another full field. We have 11 entered for the turf, 2 for the main track only. So really nice field here. And boy, it's hard not to have the number 9, Victor Lounge, an Irish bred on top of your ticket. As you mentioned, 1 of 2 in the field from Danny Gargan. And just watch this performance at Belmont on September 16th. This horse, the number 5 horse, just cruises away on that yielding turf course that afternoon. Jose Lescano in the saddles and just goes out. And Danny Gargan, boy, everybody that he runs here in South Florida, you really have to pay attention to. So just draws off here. Won the race as easy as it can. But a lot of times it looks easy, but when they step up to face winners, we'll see how that plays out. A horse I got some really, as you see, just cross. Yeah, another horse that I have some interest in here is the number 8. That's Remember the Maine. Now, if you go back and look at this horse's last race, this one moved to the Juan Carlos Abreu Bon Via the Claim. Was dead game last time out, went through a narrow opening on the rail to beat those horses last time out. That's a $16,000 level. I just thought this son of Court Vision, the only 3-time winner in the field, might be able to spring a little bit of an upset because the big favorite is certainly going to be Victor Lounge. The other horse I'm using without remorse is turning back to a mile in this race, stalked the pace, finished better than it looks on paper, the 3rd against $35,000 optional claimers. And I think it's a good spot, $30,000. good spot for this horse.
Well, sounds good, Ronnie. We'll see ultimately how fast the pace is. I looked at the race here at Gulfstream West and feel as though there might be some hitting early on, but again, a 1-2 punch for both trainers, David Fox and Danny Gargan, and all four of their horses combined look pretty live to me in a very tricky and deep third leg in the Stronach 5. One race this week from Laurel Park, and in fact, our opening race as far as the sequence goes on the dirt. We've got some 2-year-old filly maiden special weight runners ready to tangle up there in Maryland City, Maryland, and I'm very happy to welcome Stan into the show. And Stan, this race is basically split down the middle. You've got 5 that have already raced and 5 first-time starters.
Yeah, it's a real deep field. I think this is one of the races in the Stronach 5 this week where you have to go a little deep, maybe 3-4 deep, even more if you can afford it. It's a real nice group of maiden special weight 2-year-old fillies going 6 furlongs on the main track. Your 5-2 morning line favored is the 5 Super Escape. First-time starter for trainer Mike Trombetta, a homebred for Live Oak Stud. I picked that filly in my top 3, but I'm going to go with the filly who has a little experience on top, the 9 Nightlife, who's 3-1 morning line. She's going to be my top pick in this field. She's a homebred for Everest Stables, Maryland bred filly by Into Mischief. They paid $100,000 to go to a top sire like Into Mischief. She stumbled in her debut against maiden special weight at Laurel Park, but her second start she made a big improvement. She showed improved speed in her second start. She got in front. She finished 3rd that day in a nice 8-horse field. I think she has no excuse this Friday. She's getting 5 pounds off from the whole field as we have the bug boy Joan Rosado aboard. He was aboard for the first 2 starts. She's going to have a nice trouble-free trip on the outside with that early speed. I think the 9 Nightlife is going to try to clear right from the outside, go to the front. See, the question mark, though, is can she get to 6 furlongs? I'm hoping in her 3rd start she continues to make progress and she can finish a little bit better. She gets 5 pounds off with the bug boy. She'll get a nice outside trip. This rider, Rosado and trainer Eddie Coletti, they're 26% together with a nice positive ROI. So the 9 Nightlife with that speed, with that experience, with that good outside post, getting 5 pounds off, she's going to be my top pick. But I do like the entry for trainer Jerry O'Dwyer and Designated Hitters Racing LLC. The 1 Olive Cat 9-2 and a first-time starter, the 1A Weekend Flyer 9-2. Here's the race from September 16th here at Laurel Park, a maiden special weight. Nightlife, my top picks in front early on here, but you're going to see Olive Cat kind of get shuffled early, get into some traffic. She overcomes it and still manages to finish a good 4th in this race. She was only beaten 2 lengths by Nightlife. Nightlife was 3rd. Olive Cat finished 4th. So I think Olive Cat got a lot of education and experience out of that debut effort. Ashley Castrenzi back aboard for Jerry O'Dwyer. Castrenzi and Jerry O'Dwyer, they're 3 for 7 recently at Laurel Park with a nice positive ROI of almost $4. So I think the O'Dwyer entry, the 1 Olive Cat and the 1A Weekend Flyer, who's a nice mineshaft first-time starter, they paid $75,000 for at Keeneland. I think the O'Dwyer entry is live. You have to like the first-time starter from Mike Trombetta's barn. Trombetta had a big weekend last weekend here at Laurel Park. He had 3 wins, I believe, on Saturday. Julian Pimentel was aboard for all 3 wins. The 5 Super Escape by Medaglia d'Oro. That's a $250,000 stud fee that Live Oak Stud paid for this filly. So this filly is bred to be a nice one. She's been working okay up there at Fair Hill. Pimentel will ride Lasix and debut. You have to like the 5 Super Escape. I also like the 6 Cornetta's Choice, first-time starter from the Jason Egan barn. He's an up-and-coming trainer here in Maryland. She's been working lights out here at Laurel Park and gets a top rider, Jevion Toledo. So a real deep field for the 4th leg of the Stronach 5 this week here at Laurel Park. Race 9, I think you have to go 3, 4, 5 deep in this race. Jason?
Yeah, absolutely, Stan. I'm not as familiar with the horse population up there in Maryland like you are, but I was a little confused trying to size up the race on paper, and even with the fact that the 8 China Cat is shipping in from the Big Apple for trainer Jeremiah Engelhardt off one race at Saratoga. That horse, to me, looked like a potential use in a race you might be able to spread around and use many. And that, I think, is a fitting segue as we come up to the final leg of this October 12th Stronach 5. Back out to Michelle at Santa Santa Anita Park, and we'll bring on some more main track maidens, fillies and mares. And this is the one race in this week's sequence of the Stronach 5, Michelle, where, I mean, this is a grudge match and showdown, maybe to end all grudge matches. You've got 7 of the 9 coming out of the same exact race a few weeks ago up there at Del Mar.
Exactly, Jason. That's what makes it so tough. And not only are they all coming out of the same race, but if you go back and even watch each horse individually, I could not find a huge excuse for any of them. There wasn't a ton of traffic. There wasn't a horse that got blocked. It was a really fairly run race. So that means who's moved forward. My top pick is going to end up being Tivit, who ran second in the race aforementioned. But like you said, the majority of this field is all coming out of this race, including Glitz and Glamour, Giver Dilute, Creative Contessa, Johansson. So all these horses coming out of here, and the horse we're watching is in the middle right there. Again, no excuse for this horse to run second, but I like how when Kindred ran by, Tivit really did try to re-rally and is going to draw away from the rest of the field. The interesting horse in there was Johansson, who was about 11 lengths back when they went down the backside and made up a ton of ground to wind up finishing third. So I think that that was a really interesting race for that horse, but this is such a tough race. It wasn't even that clear, I feel like, on that race day, because the Mick Ruiz first-time starter was actually the favorite in there, Creative Contessa, who had speed and then faded, ended up finishing 6th that day, gets blinkers off today, and did break a hair slow, according to comment lines, but when I went back and watched it, it was very minute. Giver Dilute, the Bob Baffert runner in there, was the second choice in that race, and I had no excuse for her. One thing I can say for Giver Dilute is her recent work since leaving Del Mar have been much better. So she could have just been one of those horses that did not like where the surf meets the turf. And we've seen that actually with a lot of runners coming in from Del Mar, that their form at Del Mar wasn't great, and they've been able to thrive since coming here. So her last 3 works here locally, I feel like, have been a big improvement from her works down at Del Mar, and you can watch those works on XBTV if you are so inclined. But what it still shows me is she's a one-pace type, so she doesn't have a huge kick, and she does need to improve. Bob Baffert, 25% with his maidens making their second start. So I narrowed it down to 5 horses. On our master ticket, we're going to use 3, but I highly recommend, if you can pull some change up from somewhere, you chuck as many in there as possible, because it is not an easy race. The other horse I end up using in our master ticket is the 9, Muse, for Richard Mandela, and she's one of the horses that does not come out of that maiden race. She actually routed on the grass on debut and ran 4th that day, so she is going to cut back in distance. She is going to try the main track here, but she gets the services of Mike Smith, and she has had blazing workout times in the mornings here on the main track for Richard Mandela, which we don't see a lot. So very interesting, her, and she'll be drawing from the outside. And even though she didn't show speed on debut going long on the grass, she might be able to here on the dirt, which could be her preferred surface.
Well, Michelle, covering a lot of ground in that back-end leg out there at Santa Anita Park. I think, in my personal estimation, this is my favorite race in the entire Stronach 5 sequence this coming Friday, October 12th. It just looks like a fun and very deep and very interesting maiden special weight for the gals out there on the Santa Anita Park main track. Now the fun part, and also the tough part. Let's give you a little picks recap, some 1, 2, 3s, some top selections, and this is just a template, just a guide. Maybe if you've got some deeper pockets, you can start to spread around and really start to go a little deep in these top 3s and 4s that we're showing you from Michelle, Stan, and Ronnie. And again, we burn the midnight oil. This was the hard part. And remember, on this show for the $1 minimum, we've got to keep, our idea is to keep the grand total less than $100. And we came in well under $100, going 3 by 2 by 2 by 2 by 3. But I said it last week, and it holds true for this round in the Stronach 5. Maybe get together with a few friends, throw up a few bucks as well, because it does seem like an incredibly challenging sequence. But if you get lucky and you hit it, you're going to get paid. That is for sure. And as we head down the home stretch, we've got a couple of quick reminders here, a little bit of a recap, beginning with the free pass performances. Obviously, our experts were hard at work over the last couple of days formulating some opinions for the races in the sequence. We've got you covered over at GulfstreamPark.com, and you just cannot beat that 12% takeout in the Stronach 5. I absolutely love standing up here and mentioning the 12% takeout. It's just so great. And again, a couple of flicks of the wrist, and you're good to go. Ask for Gulfstream Park West, race number 7, $1, Stronach 5, and off to the races. And I hope the windows you will be. So that does it. The buzzer has sounded on this edition of the Stronach 5. We wish you the best of luck again at the windows, and we'll see you next time right here on XBTV.